Jeni and Paige here with Women's MTB Experience, and we are recording a podcast that we've actually recorded before. I accidentally deleted our prior podcast.
I still blame it on Justin.
Yeah.
I don't know how. It all goes back to Justin, so it's his fault.
And I had accidentally uploaded it to YouTube, the unedited version. So for those of you that got to hear the podcast that was
and there were very few F-bombs in that one, so it's unfortunate that one got
I know.
erased.
I just, in my panic, I deleted it as Justin was going, 5 views, 6 views, 7 views. So here we are again. But I feel like this is good timing because we're going to talk about what it takes to improve your mountain biking skills, and particularly like practicing and reaching that pain threshold and getting through it. And I think that's good timing for the first of the year because most people
coming into something new, and a lot of people have big plans.
Exactly.
As we start the new year.
Exactly. So maybe it was meant to be to record this the second time
do
around.
It again.
Although we don't get to tell the story of last time when we recorded this. That day we were talking about what it takes to improve your skills, and you busted me shuttling. That was the last. Yeah. I can't do that anymore.
As she says, I want to be a stronger enduro racer, and I have a cross country race coming up. I went shuttling today
in 2 weeks. Yeah, no more shuttling for me for 2018. Not until I get to ride a chairlift this summer. All right. So, do you want to kick us off on the effort it takes?
I think the where we went last time, we were talking about people who were frustrated that they were not getting where they wanted to on the bike. And so we were talking about,
that's right.
We started with practice and how are you practicing and what are you practicing and are you practicing? I guess the difference between practicing, riding, and training, and that we have to differentiate those. And if you have skills, I hear from people all the time, I want to be able to hit drops, or I want to be able to be in the air. And, how much time are you practicing that? Well, when I come out and ride, I try and hit that one drop. And that is just not going to do it. And for most people that I coach, one reason they're not hitting the skills that they want is they actually don't have the prerequisite skills in order to hit those bigger skills, whether it's jumping or whether it's drops. And so what I ask people, or what I ask you guys, if you're frustrated with a skill that you're not achieving, are you practicing the prerequisites to actually accomplish that skill? If you want drops, if you want to hit a drop, are you practicing your lunge? And more importantly, do you really know where your ready position is so that you're in a good balanced position? And if that's something that you're not working on, or you can't tell me if you are or not, that's something that you need to work on before you hit those drops. If you're always messing up the corners, are you practicing cornering? Are you practicing it at the park? Are you practicing it in the cul-de-sac? And really practicing the angles, looking all the way through, and things that we've worked on in the past. And I think that a lot of people, they go out on a ride and they think that, one, they're practicing, and then two, they're training. And a ride is a ride. Right? Don't get me wrong. I want everyone to ride because a ride is fun. But a ride is not practice. Practice is diligent. It's broken down. And it's specific. It's not just whatever happens to me. It's specific. Today I'm working on wheel lifts. Today I'm working on manuals. Today I'm working on a wheelie. All of that's it's specific. It's not just whatever is thrown at me. We practice those specific things so that we can handle whatever's thrown at me.
So would you recommend a kind of like what we're doing with our 2 skill building days that we're going to do each month? Like, would you recommend that to any rider?
I would I would recommend for most individuals more than 2 days a month.
Yes, absolutely.
Like for us, we made the commitment to each other to get together at least twice a month to both work on our specific skills. Pick a skill and for us to work on it together so that we can critique each other, so that we can continue to improve. But really, I think if you have a skill, if you have something on the bike that you want to improve, you're not going to improve it by only practicing it once a week. If you're only riding, unfortunately in the winter, we have no sun. Most of us we're having to work all day, and then we're lucky to get to ride on the weekend. And I know you got races, you got training, so you're going out there and you're going as fast as you can. You're not practicing. You're riding. Maybe you're training because you're doing intervals, but you're not practicing that skill. And so that one skill is not going to get any better if you're not practicing. So I would say even if it's just 10 minutes a day at this one skill that you're working on, 10 minutes a day. You get home, the sun is going down, and you're spending a little time. Maybe your skill you have to bring it back to fundamental or the basics, and all you're working on right now is bike body separation and being able to move your bike underneath you, and truly understanding what equal pressure in your pedals is, and truly understanding what balance is. That might be your first step.
And not to promote our clinics, but I just think that time at a clinic is where you could actually have that uninterrupted time to practice. And I know it's not a continuous thing, but like when I did the IMBA level 2 and I had that whole weekend and I practiced from sun up to sundown on just my skills, it was amazing. It really, it made such a huge difference.
And I think when you go to a clinic, you realize things that maybe you hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
And hopefully they're breaking it down for you in a way that you can go practice these skills. Because I know for a lot of you guys, when you say, well, really, practicing in the parking lot, that's really boring. Well, yeah, it can be pretty boring, but you have to figure out ways to make it not so boring. Mm-hmm. I can always tell if I'm coaching a clinic, I can tell if we're learning a new skill, or even if we're not learning a new skill, I can tell the people who really get something, especially as we move up. Yeah, when we talk about ready position and all, your entry level, your basic skills, not so much. But when we start getting into things like cornering or wheel lifts, I can tell the people who get it. You want to know why? The people who get it are the ones who are continuing to practice. Mm-hmm. And they're having fun with it. Mm-hmm. And they're figuring out a new way to do it. Either they're doing it with more intensity. They're doing it with more speed. All of a sudden, they just figured out how to lean their bike. And they're like, oh, this is cool. Or they finally figured out a wheel lift. Mm-hmm. And they're like, I got to do this over and over and over again. And unfortunately, the people who do it one time around are typically the people who did not truly understand or get the concept. And it doesn't, when I say something like that, I know it sounds, I don't want it to sound bad. It's practice. Yeah. And we just, of all over the years, you've practiced these bad habits, or maybe you have no habits at all because you're brand new. The only way we develop new habits or the right habit is to practice it over and over and over. And if we have a bad habit that we're trying to break, for the many years of doing that bad habit, it's going to take weeks and weeks and thousands of times of doing it correctly before we, I think we talked about this last time, maybe we didn't, about ownership of your skills. And it's kind of funny because I was just thinking about I should write a blog on that one about, do I own my skills? And, for the most part, a lot of us don't own our skills. If we've just learned a skill, you don't own that thing. You're lucky if you're renting it on a regular basis, but you don't own that thing because it's not happening in any kind of terrain, in any kind of situation. The only time you got that skill is when the terrain was perfect, everything leading up to it was perfect, and you kind of got that skill, kind of. So you're renting. Maybe after you've practiced it for a really, really long time, you get to lease it because pretty much you own it in different kind of situations. And then it's after you've been leasing it for a few years that you actually get to own that skill. And
that's my pedaling front wheel lift. Still renting.
Me, there are plenty of skills that I still rent too. So I finally feel like I own cornering. It's taken me forever, but I feel like I own cornering. But yeah, there are plenty of skills that I'm renting too.
So what do you think about what are your suggestions for someone that is getting frustrated with like trying to get past their pain threshold? And I think of climbing, and I can hear you now every time I climb something, because you're like, go to the point of you're going to puke, right? Like you're going to, and an enduro racing.
Okay, go to the point of where you're going to puke, but not every time.
And so it really helped, though. It's like, yeah, it hurts, but I'm not going to jump off my bike because, look, I can do it.
Let's kind of clarify this for everyone. When I say go to the point where you're going to puke, Jeni and I had kind of been talking about that with racing, and then she was at a race and she was asking someone else, well, where are you resting in the course? And she finally got it, because I said, what do you mean resting while you're in your race run? There's no resting in your race run. And someone else said that to her, and it finally dawned on her. And so she went out and rode her course, when she was on track, as hard as she could.
And I won those 2 stages.
Yeah, and that was my point, that when you finish your downhill run or you finish your enduro run, pretty much you feel like you're going to puke, because you went as hard as you could for, that 4 minutes or that 5 minutes or however long. And it's not that I would want you to go out and train like that all the time, because there's a time and a place for that. But I think absolutely we climb up these we have these climbs, and maybe you have a short lung buster, right? And you're like, I just can't get up that hill. Yeah, sometimes you just have to suck it up. And I mean, absolutely. I have sections on places where I climb and like, you just look up and just keep going.
Yeah.
And you're going to get to the top. And yes, it is painful. Everyone comes in and says, well, how do I make climbing easier? Yes, there are certain body positions, and yes, we need to learn how to weight and unweight our front and rear wheel. But fact of the matter is, a lot of times you're just sucking it up, and it's just going to hurt until you get to the top of that climb. And I realize that when you start a climb, if I have a 20-minute climb and I start at the bottom and I'm looking at the top of the hill for 20 minutes, I know it's going to be impossible. So break it down into segments. Maybe you're looking 25 feet in front of you to a tree. Mm-hmm. And that's what I do on the steepest climbs. It's almost like reeling yourself in, like with a fishing line. Look at the tree. Look at a shadow. Look at a stick. You're going to ride and not quit and not give up until you get to that stick. Mm-hmm. 9 times out of 10, by the time you get to that stick, you're like, okay, I can make it to that next rock. Mm-hmm. And my biggest goal, especially if you're someone who is continually getting off on every single climb, don't beat yourself up over it, but just do a little more next time. And instead of looking at the very, very top of the hill, look where you normally get off, and then look beyond it and say, okay, today I'm going to point B instead of point A. You made it to point B. If you didn't die, go on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and that's the biggest thing, is you didn't die, so go on a little bit more. And I don't know how else to explain it, but I feel like often women come to clinics and they think if they learn the right skill or the right trick that all of a sudden climbing is going to be easier. Yeah, we can learn to make certain things, like getting over certain things, easier, but fact of the matter is it's all about fitness, and there is no easier. Yeah. And I don't want to say that as discouragement to anyone. I guess I want to say that as level the playing field, is that what's hard for you is hard for someone else. Everyone is sucking it up those hills. It's hard for everyone, no matter who you are. It's just that some people have more practice at it. And point blank, some people have more practice at pain and suffering. Mm-hmm. And that's certainly that's how races are won. It's not always the most skilled rider. Often it's the one who can suffer the hardest for the longest is who wins that race.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I know once we had ridden together and you kind of pushed me in that area as far as like the technical uphills and things like that I just wanted to die trying to get up, and over. Well, then once I did it, I'm like, well, now I can't not do it. Because I already did. Well, I was like, that was running. I'm like, I have to.
And then it comes kind of back to, pick a spot, kind of reel yourself in. So, like, we rode up Confluence, right?
Yeah.
And so, okay, I just have to get up this one rocky section, and then it smooths out.
Exactly.
And I can take my break. I just have to get up this one section, and then you realize, I don't really need that much of a break here. Once I got up that hard, it's not that big of a deal now. And then, you have another section. Okay, fine. Yeah. Take your breather, take your break. And then get on it coming into that section. Take a breather, take a break, right?
Yep. And I think celebrating the progressions of that is really great. Like you were saying, as far as you make it up that hill, maybe you used to stop at the top. We'll keep going. See how much farther you can go. Like you make it up. And I think about when I used to, just when I first started riding, we would stop like 10 times on what, right?
Well,
and now I don't ever stop, and I think that's really cool. Like,
it's absolutely cool. And there's something else to think about for a lot of people, and maybe you've noticed this. You climb up a super hard hill. You are out of breath and you are tired, and you get to the very, very top. You get off your bike because you feel like you're going to pass out, and then all of a sudden it's even harder to breathe.
Yeah.
Well, so let's get some physiology in there. If I start thinking about it, I've got to get oxygen into my blood in order to be breathing and to feel good. Well, I don't get blood pumped back to my heart and lungs unless I'm using my muscles. It's, they have to work and contract in order to push blood back up. Once I stop moving, everything stops moving. So you're not oxygenating your blood as much. So you get to the top of the hill, instead of stopping dead, just ride slow, but keep your legs moving, and your heart rate's going to come down quicker, and you're going to oxygenate your blood quicker. I'm not asking you to continue blowing it up, but you can stay on your bike at a really easy pace. And maybe you can't. Maybe it was that. But walk it out rather than stopping completely. And I think it's those little things too, where you realize you can get to the top of the hill, and I can take a break there. And even if I'm barely moving, I'm still moving. And that's going to help you move faster the next time.
Yeah. Well, and I have to give a big shout out to mountain bikers and climbing, because, I come fresh off of 50K, and I went mountain biking, and I was dying. And there were people that were 20 years older than me, like just cruising all up the hill. And I was like, I was hanging onto a tree, like trying to get air. And like, I was dying. And I'm like, what the?
So then it comes down to gearing, right?
Yeah,
learning how to use your gears and learning where to be and how to rest and how.
Justin was behind me, and he tried to say, hey, did you want to switch gears, sweetie? And I wanted to kill him, because I was like, don't even talk to me right now. But I think it's really, so I feel like people, climbing is not easy. And it is something like I'm dreading a little bit our ride on Saturday. I haven't been on the bike in a couple of weeks. And I'm like, oh. And I think you don't know how hard climbing is until you actually start mountain biking. And it's super cool when you just start like pumping up all those hills and you don't have any issues. It's pretty neat.
Absolutely.
So what would be your recommendation for anybody that's just frustrated with skills? I mean, you touched on a little bit of just they're not getting a certain skill.
Well, I think often we have to take it back down to the basics. I think I was talking to someone on a website, that was having a hard time with a skill she'd been doing, and said, well, start from the beginning. If you've been off your bike or you're not feeling balanced again, start from the beginning and work your way through it. I guess a great example is, after I have shoulder surgery and someone says, well, how are you getting back on and coaching right after that? I said, well, it's not like I'm going to get back on and go out and ride 20 miles down the gnarliest trail I can find. I'm going to get back on my bike and hang out in the cul-de-sac, and I'm going to make sure that I can get into a ready position, and I'm going to work on, bike body separation, and I'm going to work on just being able to move around my bike. And I think if you're feeling if you're feeling uncomfortable on your bike, the biggest things you can do is slow it down a little bit and break it down. Slow it down, and what are you having do you really have equal pressure in your feet? Do you really have level pedals? And it sounds crazy, but that is actually a pretty hard concept for a lot of people to understand, is level pedals. Yep. Sometimes I won't lie, sometimes it blows my mind that this is I forget that this is a difficult concept for a lot of people. And so, that might be something that you need to go back and check is where's my pressure?
Yeah.
Where's the pressure? Do I have equal pressure in my feet? Am I leaning on my hands? And just, reel it back in, and don't beat yourself up just because you rode something one day and you can't ride it the next. Remember we talked about the renting and the leasing and the owning of our skills? Clearly the skills that it's taking for you to ride that are just being rented right now. It's okay. Go back and drill them. I think the best thing that you can do is spend a little time each week on your basics and make sure that you've got them under control.
All right. Well, anything else that you want to add to this particular topic?
I can't remember
what we talked about last time.
I know. I can't remember. I think that the biggest thing, it kind of comes back to if you want to learn a new skill or you're frustrated, you have to be really honest with yourself. How much time are you really putting into learning that? And I guess it does come down to how important is it, right? Because sometimes I really want to learn to jump, but it's not important enough for you to make a change in the way you're training or the way you're practicing or, taking the steps that it takes. Because I think, fact of the matter is if you're only riding 2 times a month, once a month, the amount of time it's going to take for your skills to improve is a very long time, right? And so we just have to put a little more time into it. And you have to be real honest with yourself. Well, I want to do this. How important is it to me? If it's really important, I'm going to... Oh, that was the dog scratching. I think my dog wants in. If it's really important, you're going to make the time and make some changes to actually practice this skill.
Yep.
And I think when people are frustrated or they complain that they're not getting this, they're not really being honest with themselves as to how important is this. If it's really important, you're going to spend the time that it takes. If it's just kind of important, you're probably not.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, I think we will be doing some skill videos this month, and we're going to do that probably every month. And if there's any other topics anybody would like to hear about, we're here. Just let us know.
Let us know what you want to talk about. Bye.